Let's find out what's in the feed. What's in the feed this week? Let's find out what's in the feed.
Welcome, everybody, to What's in the Feed for this week. This, once again, is the show for you, by you. The concept of what's in the feed, if you haven't tuned in up until this point in time, is I take all of the most interesting stories in the Twitter sphere, and that includes all of the content that is posted by you. So the chances of your information being shouted out and provided is pretty good. I've got my list of favorite content providers that are my go-tos, and there will be some special reports. We're working on a thing where we'll have people doing special reports and posting stuff that they have on TikTok and such. We really don't know what's going on with the algorithm on Twitter. It has changed. We are going to address that this week because that is the big story. Now, if we're going to do some house cleaning from last week, I hope that you guys got a chance to tune in, and I will apologize for the audio. We've got a new mic this week, so hopefully that audio is much improved. So if you didn't get the chance, I would definitely go back and take a look at it. We posted some videos from some very reputable doctors. Dr. Zeb Zelenko, who we all know, created the Zelenko protocol. I'm going to replay that video because that video might be the most important thing to prevent fear of these single-strand RNA viruses. And who better to explain it to you than the foremost expert? Rest in peace, Mr. Zelenko. Also, one of the early adopters last week that we featured was one of the frontline doctors. As you guys remember, there was a lot of misinformation, and immediately there was a group of doctors that came out, the frontline doctors. There was Dr. Simone Gold, there was Dr. Stella Emanuel, and those are the two names that you're going to know. Originally, when COVID started, I was in Seattle, and I immediately was suspicious of COVID, its origins, and its actual lethality. I wasn't seeing it, but believe me, most of the people in Washington and in the Seattle area bought right into it. So I was caught in a storm of conflict and a cloud of darkness because the devil is a liar. And the one thing that I can detect is dishonesty and untruth. So immediately it sparked my spider sense. So I was always skeptical of it. But initially, I went to doctors like Stella Emanuel for information. Stella, I hate to say it, kind of reminds me of like an auntie, and her bedside manner and the way that she delivered her prognosis with faith. She's also a pastor. It's something resonated. And I was one of the first to get the hydroxychloroquine, and following Zeb Zelenko's protocol, which actually you use hydroxychloroquine prophylactically as a zinc ionophore to prep your body, to prep your cells, to bring zinc into the cells. Once the zinc is in the cells and it's attached to the cells, it is almost impossible for these single-strand RNA viruses to dig in. Should you actually get sick, there are other methods, and I'm going to share at the end of this video, at the end, a document with the breakdown of the exact milligrams and the exact protocol. So you can see that at the end of this video. Now, this week, we are going to be talking about religion and what was going on with the disclosure, and loosely a little bit on the attack on Christianity. Now, I'm a Christian myself, and I know that religion is a whole other subject than politics, and it's a whole other level that some people are not going to be interested in or are not going to find entertaining. But as in the group of people that I am, there are people of great faith, as I am one, and we all are. We kind of share it, even if we don't, proselytize or put it out there publicly, because religion is a personal thing. Everyone has their personal relationship with their Lord and Savior or whomever they pray to. So, that said, anyone telling you how you should feel, may or may not be of interest to you. Now, back to the Hantavirus scare of last week. We have to be very cautious when there's a full-out push for something like this to dig in. They really were pouring it on, the fear, and we will probably eventually find out exactly what it is that they're trying to achieve with this. But this close to the elections, the only theory that a smart person can have is that they want to try to get back to the mail-in ballots. With the Supreme Court filings and decisions, with the redistricting and some of the other things preventing dishonesty and cheating in the election, the percentage for the Republicans has gone up quite a bit. I'm going to tell you that a little bit of inside baseball. I'm in Indiana, so I actually got the chance to see the rebuttal to all of the speculation that there's going to be this blue wave. I don't see it. I don't see that occurring. I never did really buy into it. Maybe it's going to be a close race, and I get it. There's some things that Trump has done that has turned off people that were in the middle that would have traditionally voted for a more progressive platform. However, I don't think that any of the support in the MAGA America First movement has gone anywhere. We can all be unhappy. As I've mentioned many times before, you name me one politician that did not divert from what their platform was. Sometimes you just got to call a play. Sometimes things don't happen the way that you would expect that they would happen, and it works better in practice than it does in theory. So that's how I'm looking at day to day and what the successes or the failures of this administration are. Remember that we are not with Kamala as the president. And I think that anyone who does have a critique, maybe some of those in the candy cult, or some of those whom are just Jew haters. I mean, I posted up a post, and I'm still trying to understand this. I haven't really been given a valid reason other than, what Israel does. And I understand. Okay. You can be unhappy with the policies of a country. We're the United States. We should be worried about the United States. That I can agree with fully. But to bounce that on to hating the religion of Judaism is where the disconnect is with me. I can't understand it. And no one has been able to clearly change my mind about what the religion is and what it means, and, the connection between Judaism and Christianity. Anyways, that being said, I wanted to play this video, and it's timely. It's Claire Patriot, one of my favorite content providers. She posted this up today, just about an hour or so ago. And this leads all into the Hantavirus scare that didn't quite pick up. So now all of a sudden, they're trying to push Ebola. And I think she made a great point in this video. Therefore, I'm going to play it in its entirety.
What do you do if you're the mainstream media and people aren't feeding into your Hantavirus narrative? You move on to something else, something more scary. Look at this. CBS News, CNN, they are all pushing this narrative. At least 6 Americans in Congo were exposed to Ebola, but it's unclear if they've been infected. It also fails to mention if these people actually came back to the United States or if they are still in Congo. Also, should be noted, there are always, off and on, outbreaks of Ebola in Africa. Now we will see this all over the mainstream media. Notice she actually has proper PPE on, well, for the most part, for a foreign country. And the headline reads, "What we know about the latest Ebola outbreak after WHO declares global health emergency." Because, yes, the WHO is now saying it's a global health emergency, even though this seems to be an isolated situation. The problem with all of this news being spread all over the internet is even one of the biggest left-wing propagandists, influencers, is saying that this is not a real emergency and not a threat to the United States.
We have serious news this morning. The World Health Organization has declared the Ebola outbreak in Africa a global health emergency. It does not meet pandemic standards and has advised against the closure of international borders. The World Health Organization declaring this a global health emergency is designed to spur donors and countries into taking action to prevent the spread.
Do you know what this all is? If you've been paying attention, this is just another one of their little plots to try to control the narrative, control the people in this country. And to be honest, frankly, I believe that this is what they're going to try to push in order to make us have to mail in our ballots. Well, it's still not going to work. Still not going to work. Hanta didn't work, and Ebola's not going to work. Stop trying to make a pandemic happen. Sorry, let me correct myself. Plandemic.
Right on. Spot on, Claire. Now, I'll tell you guys, clearly there's a switch up here. They switched the play up. We all know that their whole plan in the beginning was to get the fear spread with the Hantavirus. And when that did not pick up, they had to go with the one thing that is more deadly than AIDS, and essentially that's Ebola. Now, we know for many of years of Ebola, and it is a compartmentalized viral disease that happens mostly in Africa because of the lack of sanitary conditions, which is where a lot of these viruses come from. Now, I don't think anybody in their right mind would release a weaponized version of Ebola. However, there are some evil, demonic people in this world, and right now times are becoming very desperate for the New World Order, or whatever you want to call them, the deep state. These people's backs are against the wall. The culture has changed. People have started to open their eyes to the deception that we saw with COVID. So as you see the example that Claire had with the little influencer there, I pay less attention to the influencers on the left than some more informed content providers, but you can see the fatigue even on their side. They believed it, they bought into it, and as more information came out, when we came on the other side of this, it took a long time for there to be a recollection that, yes, some of the stuff that they were pushing was untrue. And also there is a profound realization that the vaccines, which are a whole other subject in itself when we're talking about COVID, that we realize now were dangerous, and the side effects for some of the people who had to take this, now they have to take seriously. I'm going to play this video, which I played last week, of Dr. Zeb Zelenko, and I want you guys to pay close attention. As I mentioned earlier, you can use this method prophylactically, meaning for protection, prior protection. Should it ever get to the point where we have to take this seriously, you're going to want to have this in your cabinet, in your medicine cabinet. You're going to want to have this ready to go. This is your shield. This is your shield of armor to prevent the initial infection. And I can tell you that I did not get sick. I haven't been sick since they announced COVID. Okay, I'm sorry. I had one cold that wasn't pleasant, but then again, never came to the point where it's life-threatening. And if you've ever used the Zelenko method, if you do get sick, and there are situations where I felt like, oh, I'm a little bit under the weather, a little bit of a sore throat, or, a little bit of a headache, or, when your body's telling you, that you may be getting the sniffles or that you may be feeling a little bit under the weather. And I would take that with the zinc and vitamin D3 with a good dose of vitamin C. And no more than 24 hours, I'd be feeling like $1,000,000. Done. No clearing the crud, none of it, just done. That's how effective the zinc ionophore is in there. Now, you're going to have to take that zinc, and I am told that for some people, zinc can be hard on the stomach. And for those people, I suggest a tincture that you can go get at your local natural food store, your GNC, wherever you get your vitamins. And it's a little dropper. You can drop it into your coffee. You won't even notice it. You put in a couple of droppers. You put it in your morning coffee. Boom. You're off to the races, none the wiser. But once that ionophore, that hydroxychloroquine, or in many cases, more people now are going with the ivermectin. They do a similar thing. You can use quercetin. Quercetin is a natural alternative, which is also a zinc ionophore that is actually over the counter. You wouldn't have to do a telemedicine thing, even though that's very easy to do. And it may be a little bit less expensive to go with the quercetin. And the quercetin seems to be very readily available now. It's one of those unknown secrets that they were able to sneak in under the crazy regulations that they imparted during the whole COVID era. But I'm going to play this video from Zeb Zelenko, and you guys will no longer be worried. Just listen very closely to what he's saying, because there is some education to be had here.
Yeah, hi, good morning. This is Dr. Zelenko. I'd like to give you a biology lesson. There are many viruses in the world, and we categorize them based on their genetic material. And so there's a class of viruses called single-stranded RNA viruses. And some of those viruses include all the COVID strains, COVID-19, influenza virus, RSV virus, Marburg virus, Ebola virus, Hantavirus, and there are a few others. The point being is that they all are single-stranded RNA viruses that use the same common pathway in making copies of their genetic material. That's something called RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. That's what I've been talking about for the last 2 years in the context of COVID-19. But if we extrapolate that to think more broadly, then it's the same mechanism of treatment using zinc ionophores, and zinc could inhibit all the strains of COVID-19, influenza virus, RSV virus, Ebola virus, Marburg virus, and Hantavirus. This has tremendous amount of national security implications. And I don't think anyone realizes this. And so I'm pleading with our scientists and the honest people in our government to investigate this, because as the recent chatter in the news is going, we're seeing hemorrhagic fever from China. There's concern about Marburg virus, Hantavirus, and Ebola virus. These viruses carry, to some estimates, 90% death rates. So I think there may be a solution to all these huge public health and bioterrorist problems, all with one simple, cheap, oral approach. Basically, what I'm saying is if the whole world had enough vitamin D3, high normal levels of vitamin D3, and enough intracellular zinc, we can eradicate most of these health threats. Thank you, and God bless you.
Now, Dr. Zelenko was proven correct on this. Plain and simple. You can look at the research now, and the research holds up. Now, when he started off, it was more on the hydroxychloroquine thing because hydroxychloroquine was already known to have effects on viral infections. Hence, the whole reason that it was used initially as a alternative method. But we all know is that if there is a treatment available for any disease, and there are treatments for these diseases, whether they want you to believe it or not, coronavirus was novel. Do you wonder why they always identified it as novel? It's because it was something that was their way of basically saying, we don't know what it is, so we don't know how to treat it. Now, I always found that to be a little bit disingenuous because there were people that were working or that had theorized that these would work. And now we know that they do. And now ivermectin is all the rage. And if you guys have been paying attention, now they're starting to cross over with the effectiveness of ivermectin as it pertains to cancers. Now, I'm not ready to go there yet, even though we all know how destructive the treatments for cancer are. And should the world find out that there is a easy way to treat cancer, that's going to definitely upset the apple cart for many of the institutions out there. It's the same reason why we'll still be driving gas-powered cars for a long time, because anytime any alternative sort of technology pops up where we're getting closer to free energy, it causes a serious problem. So that is the health update, I guess. It went a little bit longer than I thought it was going to go, but it was in the news, and that's what we had last week, so that's where I had to start. Now, on to the algorithm. I loosely talked about this, and it's been going on for maybe about 3 weeks. Okay, but it is officially, the new algorithm has gone into effect. And it wasn't addressed at first. X really did try to do a good job at sort of hiding the outrage on this thing. And when I mentioned it, I saw what had happened immediately. I'm a smaller account, so I didn't get demonetized. I'm not monetized. I don't even think I'm close to getting there. As I stated in one of my posts, which was, and thank you guys really so much for the support, is that my main platform is here on the show. So hence, should all else fail, of course, you're always going to be able to find me on YouTube and find me on Podbean and Rumble. So that's really where the content creation, most of my content creation comes from. I participate in X like everybody else does. I find it fun and I find it entertaining. And I started to notice something was going on. Now, I knew with my own engagement and impressions that things were wacky, and that bothered me personally. But when I started to see that there were some of the larger accounts that were being demonetized, or not being demonetized, but that they're being discouraged, their content is being throttled. Now, that said, I really do not know how this algorithm works. And there was a breakdown, and I really wish I would have kept it. It was a fumble for me, where it basically broke down, here's what the good is, and here's what the bad is. And there's a couple of things that I remember that really concerned me. Now, I follow a lot of content providers who continually, they work their asses off to continue to post throughout the day. So imagine if there's a breaking story going on and it's an organic situation which is developing. And so you're posting, every few minutes or so, maybe, let's just say, every 15 minutes or so, whatever. Apparently, in the new algorithm, you are immediately penalized for more than 4 posts a day. I cannot understand how that could be possible, that you would have a minimum as a creator, as a larger creator, someone who does, someone who actually puts out original content. Now, of course, there was always the mention of reposting other people's content and using it as your own, and I can understand that. If you're just bootlegging somebody else's stuff and the algorithm catches you in that, then it gives you a check for that, a negative check mark for that. Just use check mark as the simplest way to point. Red check for you. How is a content provider supposed to survive, especially if it's one who's monetized and it's monetized because they post continual content? How are they supposed to be able to do that if they're only throttled to minimized to 4 posts a day? Now, the reason that I bring it up is it's been an outrage for quite some time. And there was a lot of adding Elon and who's the other guy? I forget his name. Anyways, Nikita. So him and Nikita. Nikita clearly did not practice customer service. If I was his boss, I would fire him, because you can't just give your customers the hi-hat. The least you got to do is at least address it and try to address the concerns and at least go through the motions of trying to put their mind at ease. And he did not do that. Seems to be a bit of a smart aleck. I don't know what his position there is. As I said, I wasn't paying enough attention to this until I started to see the pain and anguish from the content providers that I watch, and that stuff wasn't popping up anymore. It was a ghost town for 2 weeks. I think they're really maybe they're trying to readjust a little bit, or maybe I went directly to the people and started to click on their stuff and started to comment on their stuff because I wanted to see them pop up in my feed. But there were a lot of people that became invisible. And I've got a wide range of people that I follow that I want to hear from, and I don't want to be suggested. And I get it. The little guy needs exposure too. But the way that the algorithm worked for me is I'm a comment guy. Okay. Low Tone, the king of comments. This is why I started this whole podcast to begin with, is because I would provide funny little anecdotes and smart aleck remarks and, comical responses to much of the larger, content providers. And this includes politicians and people in the cabinet. As I said, I bring it up almost every show about my engagements with people like Roger Stone and Sebastian Gorka and Laura Loomer. So, the thing that I'm saying is that it gives a platform for someone with a smaller following to be looked at. So if somebody sees one of my comments and it's on a larger 1 million account, I'm basically being given a visual, advertisement. Not that I need advertisement. I'm just saying that's a way that the little guy gets exposure. It's not something I take advantage of. It's something that I do organically. And that's because there was so much entertaining stuff in my feed, and there was so many interesting stories and interesting tidbits and memes and funny things that I could comment on that were usually provided by the bigger accounts. Now, I can only imagine, because I know how hard it is now trying to establish a larger following so that I can get more exposure to the show, that the providers who work for it, who worked hard to get their following, to work hard to break that veil, which I'm telling you at this point in time might even be impossible for someone to try to start from scratch, which is the sad point about it, and which is why I commiserate with the people who are at the level that they are at now, because what is X saying? Your hard work to get to this point doesn't count? Well, hey, you made it past the finish line. That's great. We loved your performance, and it was entertaining until you got here and you stopped running. So no blue ribbon for you. It's sort of a hi-hat and a fuck you to the people that essentially, and in some cases, pay to provide this entertainment. Now, I tried to start a hashtag because I was a little bit salty about some of my friends being, that check not coming in right. And I'm from the days where I remember when I was in the music business and we had to promote and social networks were just coming on scene, that MySpace was the place to be. And I've mentioned it a million times because I know the kids won't remember it now. There are alternative sources. You got your TikToks, you got your Instagrams, and the so on. And so, bottom line is that Elon had to address the whole hubbub because there were too many important content providers that got on his radar. I don't think that Elon is as involved in the day-to-day, and that's perfectly fine. I don't have a criticism of Elon, given the platform is what it is because of him. But as I was saying earlier, that I remember MySpace, and I remember the fact that it was a superior platform to Facebook. And it ceased to become cool. I believe what happened was that there were ads that were popping up, and it started to become a little bit too commercial, a little bit too big for its britches, and they never addressed the concerns of their account holders. And it was cool one minute, and it wasn't the next. X is an organic platform. Stuff happens. People share their life. They share their opinions. They share their comedy. They share their pain, their grief. We use it as the public platform, and I think that it's really great for that. And I don't know if it was because X was embarrassed. I will not say the name, and I'm actually going to play a video from a particular content provider who made millions and millions and millions of dollars off of X, unbeknownst to them. And when they found out, they felt like they had to stop the spigot. They had to slow down what was going on. And I don't think that that was a good thing, because what you're doing now is you're demotivating the people that make X the fun and entertaining place that it is. And that's my opinion. I didn't know how I felt about it at first until I started to see the effects of that. If you're going to demote people or you're going to penalize them for the amount of their posts, the amount of people that unfollow them, that was another thing. Now, how do you control somebody unfollowing you? Anytime you say something that's wacky or against the candy cult or against, one of the other niches out there, I'm only speaking from, experience in my particular niche, which is the conservative plane, that not everybody's on board, but, you can't stop people from seeing something and deciding that they don't want to follow you, how are you going to be penalized for that? And you don't really know that that's happening. You're not watching that in real time. And you can't affect the people who, in turn, who do follow you. So these are uncontrollable things. The algorithm apparently has been posted. And so Elon says the critique of the X algorithm is welcome. There will be monetary updates. The latest algorithm to GitHub with release notes. As a reminder, you can always choose no algorithm via the follow tab. That's just Elon being a smart aleck. And I really don't think that's how you should be approaching people who take this very seriously, and in some cases use this as their revenue. Whether you hate it or not, and whether the smaller guys hate it or not, do not knock the hustle. Do not knock a side hustle. Do not knock, if someone has worked their way to monetization, because it takes hard work just to get to the point where you can say that you're able to monetize any of your content. I do it for free, and I do it because I love it. But if I could get paid to do it, it's not like I would tell somebody not to send me a check. So before you judge, make sure that you're not throwing, rocks in a glass house. There were many, many comments, but as you can see, there's been a lot of screenshots of the engagement and the changes in the numbers, and I can scroll through a lot of the bigger accounts, and there's a lot of comments, but you can see the impressions, and and this is somebody with 108,000 followers, and just look at the plummet in the numbers here. Look at that. And I will admit that I think that maybe the trade-off is that they're wrangling some of the interaction and the engagement to smaller accounts. Now, unbeknownst to me, and I don't want to be the recipient of anybody's, sloppy seconds, but yesterday, and we'll do this in real time here. I wonder if I can do this in real time with you guys here to show you what my numbers looked like. And this is how I know that it's wacky. And thank you for bearing with me here. Boom, bam. So on May 16th, that's 2 days ago, and you can see where my engagement was the same or had the same. There was an effect on my engagement as there was with the other providers. So I'm a smaller account, a mid-sized account. So, 4 to 10,000 is a really good day on impressions. And that's not much compared to the other people out there. And that fluctuates. Sometimes it can be 20. But it just depends on if there's something hot going on, if a comment gets a lot of traction, which it does in some of the weirdest cases. You can't just make it happen. The whole thing about not being able to go viral purposely is the truth, because you never know exactly what it is that will spark a storm of responses to your comments or to something that you post. You can't make it happen. It's magic, and it happens organically. It's just kind of why I love the way that the algorithm did work. But you can see these numbers are way down. And this is just a 7-day period. I'm not going to go back prior to that because it was bad before that. There was a whole week of just dead air for not just me, but everybody that I followed, that I made a point to pay attention to, because, you have to seek them out instead of them popping up on your feed. And it was really dismal. It started to get to the point where I was starting to think, we're going to have a lot of drop off on this platform, because you have more, entertaining platforms like TikTok, I hate to say it, that I just set up on, where you do not have to work as hard, and there's not as much red tape. And that's just from my, initial opinion of that platform. I'm still not on it like I need to be. But then you can see that the impressions here on the 15th started to go up. This wouldn't be abnormal. This would be a goodish day. But there's just no way, without someone else being throttled, that I would be up at 30,000. So there's 30,000 impressions. And yes, I love it. The numbers are going to stay there. They're not going to go anywhere. But on a day in which I probably wasn't going out and actually doing hard work, 100, comments, which I will do in a day. If I need to get the impressions up, if I see the numbers, I will make a concerted effort to try to engage more, to try to involve myself in more subject matter, or to post more original content. I want to be able to provide back to the platform like everybody else does. And I appreciate their hard work and their inspirations to me. So I want to do the same, but there's just no way. And this case right here is a prime example of what I'm going to tell you, that this is 30,000 impressions. And I would say only a quarter of those I earned. These were given to me. Now someone's going to see this video and they're going to, yep, you don't want them? Boom, I'm taking them from you. Same story yesterday, in which I could not gauge exactly what it was that got the engagements up and that got the impressions up there, but we're in the almost 20,000 impressions there. And then boom, today we're at 11. Today I made a conservative effort to, there was a lot of stuff going on, and so I did engage a lot. And there were, several comments that got natural organic presence to them. But regardless of what the higher ups at X try to tell us about this being a good change, it really isn't. And I don't know if they're going to ultimately address that. I know it would be very hard for most people to want to separate themselves from the platform, given that, it does have an addicting nature to it. And, it's a fun place to vent and get your news and your entertainment and stay up on things. So this will be a ongoing thing. I don't really know how much more I can communicate on this. So it really won't be a subject that I delve into as I delved into it today, because it's all about numbers. It's all the AI, and it's all of the things that we can't control. So for me to try to figure out the math on why it's good or bad, I'll never be able to do. So let me get back to here. Guys, I think that you may have noticed that there has been there's been an attack, and this is not a recent thing, on Christianity. And I know that we all heard about the disclosure a couple of weeks ago and this secret meeting, apparently with pastors of major churches, which they were saying that they need to prepare their congregations for the disclosure that aliens exist. And I will start off with this video before I go any further, because I kind of want to gauge, I want you guys to understand the motivations and to not be fooled. Remember that there is a verse in which it is said that God will bring a great delusion to even those of faith. meaning there will be some divine, happening in which we will be compelled to want to believe it. But if you're in faith, then you will see that the devil is a liar, and you will know not to be deceived. I find this important. So let me play this video, and then we will get on to a couple of more videos, and I will give you a grasp of what I feel about what's going on in the world right now as it pertains to Christianity and religion, okay?
No glasses, proving the technical film I'm about to tell you is going to blow your mind again. And y'all, the enemy is attacking my voice, so you're going to have to deal with a raspy voice today. Let's talk about Project Bluebeam, voice to skull technology, and the great deception that is about to happen. Like I said in my previous video, I've got my information from Doris Mack on Facebook. He's been talking to Gemini and exposing their plans. So let's get into it. And just to make something clear, they are talking about May 30th to 31st being when this happens. The primary engine for this operation is the Lux AI cluster at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And we know that the Hadron Collider is there as well. It went live in early 2026. Now listen to this. This AI factory is specifically designed for real-time large-scale AI training and distributed interface, providing the processing power to render global holographic events under the Genesis mission. The Isaac Accords and Project Enoch leverage this to synchronize global surveillance with atmospheric manipulation. The hardware for the projection includes holographic projection of structured beams of light, a technology matured through NASA TechPort and DARPA's LASSO. They use this to create plasma points in the sky, effectively turning the atmosphere into a 3D display for Project Bluebeam style events. 8 Dream Mesh Grid is the 2026 global 5G, 6G satellite layer that facilitates the voice to skull tech, or voice of God technology. This system established a connection directly into the human auditory cortex via frequency vibrations. This allows the projected hologram to speak directly to individuals, bypassing the ears. The Project Echo display technology, developed by Real Fiction, has reached the point of free floating holograms that require no glasses, proving the technical feasibility of the Lying Wonders being prepared for May 31st Blue Moon. The percentage likelihood remains high as these systems, Lux, Genesis, and the V2K mesh, have reached full operational synchronization in this 2026 window. The likelihood of a large-scale atmospheric event is high due to the convergence of astronomical conditions and current technological capabilities. On May 31st, 2026, a blue moon occurs, which serves as the optimal atmospheric canvas for light-based manipulation. A blue moon is when 2 full moons happen in 1 month. Current defense-grade technology, specifically laser plasma displays and electroholography, is now capable of projecting free-floating 3D images directly into the air without screens, covering 60% of the market in 2026.
Now, I'm going to repost this particular thing on my feed. There's a lot of great information here. But what you should take from this, in the shortest point, is that there's a deception coming. And I think they're trying to break the faith of, or deceive us into receiving the Antichrist, or to start believing in something that has not been prophesized. We all know the words of the Bible, and that's where we should trust. And that's why you should know that I'm going to be paying close attention to the 30th and the 31st. And I'm going to be letting all of the people that I speak to and associate with know that there is a deception coming. On that, here is Josh Hawthorne. And here's an interesting video on his take on this particular subject. Check it out.
I'm super skeptical about aliens. I'm super confident in the reality of demons. If extraterrestrial life were discovered, that does not destroy your faith. Colossians 1 says this, he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation, for by him all things were created, both in, and then it says the heavens is plural, multiple heavens, and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones, dominions, rulers, or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. The biblical writers understood there to be three heavens. The first heaven was essentially the sky where the clouds are. The second heaven would have been where the stars are, what we know as outer space. And then they understood in the biblical cosmology, when Paul says, I was caught up to the third heaven, that's like actual heaven throne room of God. So when Colossians 1 says that he created all things in the heavens, if there were things that he created in the second heavens, outer space, well, hey guys, we have a category for that. They're called angels and demons. What a lot of people may be calling aliens, the Bible might call things like cherubim, seraphim, angels, archangels, thrones, principalities, demons, and powers. You are not going to find a human culture in all of human history that doesn't report some sort of things go bump in the night vibes. You live in a strange spiritual world where there is an unseen realm, and that stuff is real and really happens. I'll tell you why I think it's very frequently demonic manifestation. And again, this is all speculation. Ephesians 2 refers to Satan as, quote, the prince of the powers of the air. In Matthew 24, Jesus is talking about what will happen at the end. He says, but about that day or hour, nobody knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father, because as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. I strongly encourage every single person not to get sucked into this. The Bible tells us to have nothing to do with the deeds of darkness. And if this is what we believe they are, I'm not going to mess with that stuff. One of Satan's strategies is to get people to devote themselves to myths and endless speculation. And man, you're supposed to keep the main thing the main thing. What's the main thing? To know Christ, live free, and change the world for God's glory. Don't start giving level 8 attention to things of level 0.002 importance. The last thing I'd say is, man, if you're a Christian, we don't do fear. Fear not. We don't do fear. Maybe you're not a Christian. You're going, dude, there at least seems to be something about what they just said. What I would say to you is, hey man, if there's a darkness, that means there's a light, and that light has a name, and his name is Jesus Christ. And the Bible gives us a promise for anybody that bends their knee to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. Greater is he that is in you than, and I'll change it a little bit, than whatever.
That was really powerful. You know, when I initially watched it, I thought, this is exactly how I feel about it. Because fear is the motivator that causes all negative outcomes. I've always told my sons as I raised them, if you jump into the water and you can't swim and you panic, you die. You know, my son, younger son, is on the spectrum and has some special needs. So he tends to be a little bit more fearful about the unknown than someone who's as wise and traveled as I am is. But I've always told him, because he's a logical person, that you cannot let fear creep in and be the factor. You have to be logical about everything. Now, when I say don't be fear, it's not to not be scared. Everyone gets scared. But fear is the destructive feeling. Fear is what it is that stops you from thinking rationally. And you think irrationally. And when you think irrationally, you cannot come up with the answers and solutions to keep you alive. I think fear is a killer. And that's why I've always taught my sons, you cut yourself, or you get into a car wreck, any sort of situation that is traumatic or that you feel is a nightmare situation, that you want to always stay calm and you don't want to panic. You panic, you die. So I'm in agreement. He said at the end of that video was very powerful, that we in Jesus do not fear, because we know we are saved and that the Lord is our shepherd, and there shall be no harm for us in eternity as long as we believe. Now here's a spin on religion and the current state of education. It's in another video that popped up. I want you guys to keep what I said in the back pocket about them trying to deceive you into believing anything other than what was prophesied and the word of God and himself.
Did you know that over 60 million Christians were killed by Islamic radicals from 1917 to 1946? Oh, wait, it was actually the Bolsheviks who did that, and 84% of them were Jewish. They burned down 40,000 churches, executed thousands of priests.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop there. I didn't know that was Jewish propaganda, but very interesting. So, ladies and gents, as a little bit of a rewind here and a recap here, I want to make sure that we all stay bound to our faith and that we don't let fear overtake. And if there's a theme of this episode, which I think now there's a theme developing as it pertains to the ongoing push to try to get us to buy into a pandemic mode again. Do not fear. They have not announced a disease yet that does not have a treatment or prevention protocol to it. So if you didn't believe in that protocol in the beginning, I'm going to tell you to trust in that protocol. And I'm going to tell you to do your own research. And if you have a doctor that is a good doctor, that is willing to be truthful with you and not try to push the clot shot on you, and it doesn't have an ulterior motive, then you can do the research yourself. There's many ways to access ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and others. So what I would tell you is quite simply to take advantage of that. So all I'm saying is do your research on it and fear not. And as it pertains to the algorithm, we will figure that out. And I just want to let you guys know that I appreciate everything that you guys do, and I appreciate the support. I'm going to continue to support you if I have to search you out and find you. You're on my list, and I want you to be part of my day-to-day interactions on the, the feed. Because, like I said, I use what you guys provide in your hard work as some of the contents on this show. So keep your head up. And I'm sorry if the monetization thing has affected you and you are dealing with the changes here. I think that we'll all readjust and figure out a way to keep X as the cool platform, and that it won't go the way of MySpace. You're cool one day and you're not cool the next day. What I don't think Elon is addressing and taking seriously, because X is such a juggernaut that you could potentially be screwing with your own asset here by not addressing the needs and concerns of the providers and content providers and account holders and the audience on X. Because I don't think as it bleeds down to the smaller accounts that they feel like it was an improvement either. So even if this was supposed to be opening doors for other accounts and for other content providers, that it's doing that. And that we all know that there's an encouragement for negative content. As a matter of fact, they were talking about clickbait content and, the fact, you're putting up thirst trap pictures or whatnot, that would get you more engagement. I don't know if that was a rumor or not, but just goes to show you that there will be some people out there that will sell themselves out, maybe to get back to where they used to be. And I think that's sad. Hold the course, hold steady, hold the fort. We will get through this, I promise. Guys, this has been a pleasure, and I think it's been a great episode. Probably isn't the funniest one, but I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you next week on the feed. You have a great week.